This is the Elevate Construction Podcast, delivering remarkable content for workers, leaders, and companies in construction wanting to take their next step. Get ready to step out of your comfort zone with Jason Schroeder as he encourages you to do better, live a remarkable life, and expect more. Let's go.
Welcome to the Elevate Construction Podcast, where we put a builder's touch on industry-leading topics. My name is Jason Schroeder, and today's podcast is the Smaller Superintendent Series topic. And today's topic is about flow. So here's a quote for you. Flow is king. I can't put it any simpler than that. In fact, I'm going to go off script here just a little bit and tell you a story that I was going to put to the end. We have known about flow for years and years and years and years. In fact, we went back to the book Building the Empire State and saw how and you can also find this in the museum when you go check out the Empire State Building. They had a takt plan. Takt is the German word for rhythm or baton, and it symbolizes flow or a stagger or a beat or a rhythm. And, similar to what you would see in an orchestra, you have the conductor conducting the music to a tempo, to a beat, right? And so I love that concept. And I also like the thought of drum beats. So takt, German word for flow or baton, and it's supposed to symbolize that flow is king again. So if you go back to the museum about the Empire State Building, or if you read the book Building the Empire State, they had a takt plan in there, and it was specifically for steel, but it was amazing. And it was shown just like they show graphical schedules from the bottom to the top, and on the left it had a picture of the building. And I just thought to myself, like, we've known about flow for a long, long time. To properly understand lean, we have to understand the concept of flow. And so I really think that we need to have that as a focus in everything that we do and know that that comes first. In fact, let me tell you a quick story. There was a general superintendent one time that was talking to me about a $76 million project that they were building where they established flow. And in fact, it was really interesting. I was like, I think about 26, 28 when I heard the story. And then when I was 33, I was able to build the building just next to that building that he was talking to in a completely different state. It was really cool. So, meaning I was in a different state when he told me the story, and then I moved to that state and built the building just next to it. But here's really the story, and I think it's really neat, is the building next door, built by a different contractor than this general superintendent that's telling the story, they had started quite a bit ahead of the other contractor. I think it was at least like 6 months. Anyway, so general superintendent telling me this story, they had started the building 6 months after the fact, and they went vertical in a flow. And as they were coming vertical, they outpaced the other project and finished like 3 months ahead of schedule. And in fact, that other contractor did so poorly that they weren't invited for a long, long time. In fact, I still think even today, they haven't been able to win work with that customer and build another building. But the key was flow. And I remember this superintendent telling me that he took it over from a different superintendent in the beginning stages. And the first thing he did was send all of the contractors home and then had them come back one by one when it was their time to install. And he would just stand there at the trailer. And he said to me, Jason, I stood on that deck and I leaned over the handrail and I just watched it for the first day that I was there. And I saw that everyone was everywhere and there was no flow. So I sent the contractors home, brought them back on time when they were supposed to be doing their work one by one, and got the project humming again. And I do want to remind you that they started later than the adjacent building and they finished 3 months earlier. In fact, they had to take some of the scope from the other contractor and put it into this superintendent's contract, into this superintendent's scope of work to finish so that the overall project could be done on time. So a really neat story. I wish I could tell you names and things like that, but because of confidentiality, I can't do that. But it's a true story nonetheless. And I just want to say that we've always known about this. We've always known that we need flow. But if we want to associate lean with it, and if we know that it is one of the main definitions of lean, I absolutely love it. And in fact, I love the book, This is Lean, that was published in 2015, I think, that describes flow and flow efficiency and really ties the definition of lean to flow. Because sometimes we say, well, it's continuous improvement and the elimination of waste. And, there are a number of other different definitions of it. But at the end of the day, for construction, it's about bringing flow back into the things that we do. Taiichi Ohno described a lean production system as one that produces what you need only as much as you need when you need it. No more than what the customer is willing to buy, and only when the customer is ready to buy it. And so, really quickly, just a quick example. If you come to an American car company, a Ford or a GMC or one of these, they have their production lines, but they'll split out, like, let me just give you a representative example. They'll split out 5,000 vehicles, and then they'll go store them in anticipation that they will all be sold, certain types, certain colors, so on and so forth, right? And that works because in the United States, we waste a lot of money and we have a lot of space, and we can do that. We can go inventory those things. But when the Japanese car makers came over to observe, they're like, well, we don't have that kind of a space. How can we only make what the customer needs when they need it? So they have smaller factories. What they did was said, okay, if we get 536 orders, they might round that up to 550 or 600, but they're only going to make what has been ordered when it was ordered. They'll put the tools together in the manufacturing facility to make those 550, 600 vehicles, and then they will produce those, and they will reduce as much waste in the value stream in the supply chain as they possibly can by getting it directly into shipping the way the customer ordered and directly to where the customer can receive it, instead of putting large amounts of these vehicles out into an inventory yard and inventorying them and counting them and replacing damaged vehicles and things like that, and then not ultimately using or selling all of them, right? So that's the difference, is they don't overproduce. And I've said before that inventory, or if you go back one step, overproduction is the mother of all waste because it creates the need for all of the other waste. If you don't overproduce something, if you don't have large amounts of inventory, then you don't have to go track defects and move them and store them and inventory them, right? All of the other waste really come from that one waste of overproduction. So I really like that quote. The traditional way of doing things in construction is to get things done as fast as possible and to produce them too soon in large quantities. For instance, you'll hear the fire sprinkler contractor saying, hey, I just want to go through the whole building and knock it all out. Framing contractor, I want to go through the building and just knock it all out. I don't care who I bury, whatever. And that is about resource efficiency. That's not what we're looking for. That's not what we're focused on. We need to focus on flow efficiency and make sure that we optimize the whole and get the entire building going in the right direction. So that's why I advocate that we use Takt plans and we show from upper left to bottom right, or bottom left to upper right, whichever way you format your Takt plans, your flow plans, that we pair that with the P6 schedule and make sure that we crew tie things in P6 in a way that will make sure that we have a flow in the project. Because what CPM, our critical path method, whichever software you're using, will do a forward and a backward pass. That's lesson number 1 in CPM, right? So it will calculate that, but it will also bring all of the activities to the left as far as they possibly can if they don't have a logic tie preventing them from doing so. So essentially, P6 is pulling everything forward that can possibly be brought forward, and most of the time it pulls you out of flow, and it lies to you a little bit, and so you have to be cautious about that. So if you don't analyze your P6 schedule, your master schedule, or your CPM to make sure that it has flow like a Takt plan would have flow, then you could have activities that are staggered that then get on top of each other, they're stacked, and then even some other areas that go backwards. And if you analyze construction projects that use P6, and hey, I love P6, or Oracle, don't get mad at me, but if you analyze this, a lot of the projects that are created will go down to the right, stack a little bit, go backwards, forward, back, because it's pulling all of the activities forward, and we don't want that. Let's say, for instance, you're building the interiors. You want it to flow from the upper left of your schedule to the bottom right at a proper stagger, at a proper flow, at a throughput that will take care of your project and keep everybody installing in a systematic and flowable way, if that's even a word. And so I've actually analyzed schedules in P6 to see that that happens. That's why we use Takt plans, whether you use software or Excel, to make sure that we're checking that we're getting that P6 schedule back to where it's a flow. This is not lean. CPM will not automatically create flow in your project unless you build the right logic in there, and we have to stop doing that. Also, superintendents typically say, let's hurry, hurry, hurry. Let's build everything as fast as we can and stretch and overwork our trade partners, our workers, order all the materials at once, because the philosophy there is get it done sooner so we can fix all the things that we screwed up in the last 3 months, 2 months, 1 month of the project and do this big, massive punch list effort. And then that produces bad quality, which is not value added to the customer. And it is also overproducing, because if you build things too quickly, they get damaged. You have to replace them. The quality isn't working. Sometimes you'll have air and vapor barrier liquid applied that shouldn't be out in the sun over a certain duration of time. There are all these different things that should prove to us that we shouldn't produce things too early on the project site. And again, it creates inventory, which increases manpower, materials, and costs. So I'm trying not to go too long in this podcast, but it's such a wonderful topic. If you decrease flow, you will increase manpower, materials, and cost exponentially. So what we need to do on our projects is to identify flow. And if we start to use concepts like takt planning, which I really recommend that you build a takt plan first and then a P6 schedule or a master CPM schedule with whatever software you're using. Takt planning should come first, and then that should guide or shape how you're going to build it in your master schedule. And so the reason that we do this is to reduce inventory. If a superintendent is pulling things forward and back and forward and back and forward and back all the time, what do the trade partners do? They think to themselves, well, okay, it's not a consistent schedule. I don't know what the superintendent's going to surprise me with next. I need to bring out all of my inventory. I need to bring out all of my materials, all of my duct, all of my everything to anticipate the whims of the superintendent. But if we say, nope, we're going to keep those things crew tight in my master schedule, it's going to follow the flow of the takt plan. I'm not going to move it around too much. I'm going to hold those dates, which is counterintuitive to what most superintendents think. Then the inventory levels will reduce, manpower levels reduce, costs reduce, because you are able to bring out things just in time when they're needed and install them right where they go without variation, and really, really do a good job with that. And so the reason I love takt planning, the reason I love flow, is because you're able to do things just in time and you're able to reduce inventory, which means you reduce all other waste, you reduce manpower, you reduce costs. So the discipline that I'm asking you superintendents to consider is that if you can build a schedule with flow, if you can use takt planning systems, if you can do these things, then you can reduce your inventory levels. But the key habit that I want you to hear from me, please, is do not move that schedule forward and back. Anytime I hear a superintendent or an owner say, there's an area that's empty, why aren't people working in there? I automatically know they don't know what they're talking about. I automatically know that they're inexperienced in the art of being a superintendent, because the question isn't, is there an open area? The question is, what is the flow of the project? What can our manpower, our trades, our materials, our procurement efforts, and the overall project sustain? And where should people be to install in a flow? Not, do I have any open areas? In fact, if I see a few open areas that are clean and workers everywhere where they're supposed to be, but that superintendent left that one area open on purpose, I know that he or she has the discipline and that they're doing good things. So the discipline I'm asking you to do is to build your schedules in a flow and then stick to that flow. Do not have an unpredictable schedule that changes all the time. That will increase all the waste that you can possibly think of. And it's like trying to put out a fire with $100 bills. Money just flies out the window. The other thing that I like about flow is, instead of saying, hey, let's hurry up and getting everything done now, let's go ahead and finish as we go. Let's punch it as we go. Let's do quality as we go and deliver that product the way we should, quality in the first place. And we don't need that 3 months of punch list at the end. So it requires some discipline, but I strongly urge you superintendents to really start thinking that way and strive to get into that direction. So takt planning and flow efficiency, these are topics that are too much for me to explain in a 5-10 minute podcast, but please accept the challenge from me to go learn about these things and to shift your mindset. If we go from random CPM scheduling as the only tool that we use and we don't maintain a flow, then we are always just trying to push things to the left and start them as soon as possible, which puts a burden on our procurement, our manpower, and everything else. And we have to have the capacity to fanatically remove roadblocks, to manage procurement, to bring materials just in time, to have balanced manpower on crews, to make sure that we maintain quality, and to do the things that we need to be doing on a constant basis. I want everybody to remember that it is not about resource efficiency or, hey, are my individual resources or contractors efficient? It's about flow efficiency and throughput through the entire system, meaning, am I optimizing the entire project flow? Are all the trades headed in the same pace, in the same direction, in a flow, so that I can make sure to manage that, see problems early, and that we're pulling work behind us? But if everything is chaotic, we lose the capacity to manage our systems, and we start to descend into chaos. And again, manpower, cost, and inventory increases, and waste increases, and money starts to go out the window. So what we need to do is make sure that we accept the challenge of learning about flow, that we read books like This Is Lean or The Goal. I really love the book, The Goal. It puts it into a nice fable, a nice story there that everybody can use and consume. And we need to make sure that our overall schedules are built with flow first, which means that we build Takt plans before we build the P6. If we do this, then we can keep crews in an environment where inventory is reduced, their production and efficiency is maximized, and they are able to do things with the right sizing of crews, the right sizing of costs. They're able to make money, and we're only producing what is needed when it is needed according to the customer's order, and we're giving more time to designers and more time for coordination. So in summary, we need to get away from just using CPM schedules, pushing everything as left as fast as we can, and then rushing all of the bad quality fixes and punch lists at the end. And we need to get all of our schedules built with a flow, finish as we go, focus on the removal of roadblocks, and make sure that we are bringing materials out just in time, because overproduction and inventory are the mothers of all waste. And if we want to waste some money, then we will ignore this concept. But the vision for this is that everyone's able to make money on these project sites, that we're able to finish on time, that we have good, solid schedules, that we have the capacity in the moment to do the things that we're supposed to be doing, and that ultimately we protect workers and we don't ask workers to pay for the sins of a failed project, a failed schedule, a schedule that doesn't have flow. So if you want any further clarification, or if you want a further podcast topic, or you want to give me feedback, please email me at jason@elevateconstructionist.com, or check us out on our website at elevateconstructionist.com. We really love feedback. We hope that these lessons are helpful to you in your career, on your project, and reach out to us if you need any help. On we go.
Please join us next time in elevating the entire construction experience for workers, leaders, and companies coast to coast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to share with your construction colleagues and help us spread the word by rating, subscribing, and leaving a review on your preferred podcast listening platform. We really appreciate it. We'll catch you next time on the Elevate Construction Podcast.